so welcome back, everybody. It's a blessing to have y'all back with us. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's always a blessing to wake up in the morning. Shout out to 2 Chainz. Every time you wake up, you winning. You know what I'm saying?
That's it, man.
Absolutely. So welcome back. Thank you for chiming in. Again, my name is Jacques Wright.
This is Adrian Peace.
And this is the Nice Guys Podcast. So today, we're going to go a little deeper, you know. We're going to talk about shadow work.
Shadow work, man.
It sounded cliche. Most people talk about it. But it's just basically working on things behind closed doors, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a lot of times we put on this mask or this facade of who we think we are or who we think we should be outside of society, but we're not dealing with ourselves.
Interesting. Yeah, it was actually my first time hearing that term was from you.
Yeah.
I never really heard that before, but so this will be interesting to bring to some other people that may not
For sure.
have also heard that term and may need to do some of that themselves. So, and maybe you're in a position right now. Let me look to my camera. Maybe you're in a position right now. Put on my Dr. Phil voice.
Yeah, put that phone.
Where you are needing to do some of this shadow work yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Facts.
Come along this journey with us.
It's a journey.
And do some of these talkings, you know, talking with us.
Yeah.
What I do when I listen to podcasts, sometimes people would think I'm crazy if they really saw me, but I'll be talking back to the podcast sometimes. It's like, I don't really realize I'm doing it. But that, like, somebody will say something and I'll be like, nah, bro, it ain't even like that. You know what I'm saying?
That's commentary now. I thought you having full conversations with the pod.
I'll be trying to correct them on stuff and stuff like that.
That's cool. I do that.
I'll be like, that ain't even.
Yeah, I do that too.
And then I'll be like, damn, they can't hear me.
I do
You know
that
what I'm
shit.
saying?
Yeah, I do that. I'm crazy then too. I'll be doing I ain't going for
So
that.
enjoy the conversation with us, man.
Yeah, for sure. But but with shadow work on the deeper side of things, and hopefully we don't throw y'all off, but with shadow work, it's really just being able to go into yourself and really try to like mend and heal some of the things, maybe childhood traumas, things that you never really dealt with. It's kind of lingering or actually keeping you from able to grow.
Yeah, okay.
You know, a lot of times we don't realize certain patterns that we have consecutively because we're creatures of habit.
Yeah.
But if we don't fix certain things that are that are hindering us, then of course we continue to keep the same cycle going on. Shout out to Jonathan McReynolds. I know I'm cussing a little bit, but that's one of my favorite gospel singers. Cole do actually auditioned for him one time. It was kind of dope experience. He is fired, even live. He don't need no auto-tune. That man,
Interesting.
Pitch is crazy.
Right.
Anyway, but in limelight of the situation, man, when you're dealing with shadow work, it's hard. You know, a lot of times we don't want to face certain things on a face-to-face with certain people, dealing with yourself in the mirror and really looking at certain things that you really want to accomplish and overcome. It's a challenge. You know, sometimes you even see it in a relationship. Like for me personally, the reason why it came to my attention is because I was dealing with somebody and I'm so taking heat to want to be in certain relationships with people or try to do certain things to overcompensate and not realizing there's certain parts of me that I need to make sure I'm fixing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times we attract the same people in relationships or people in life, friendships, whatever. And it's because of the fact that we have amend certain things or traumas or energies that we need to be able to overcome in our own personal battles. You know, I ain't perfect. You know what I'm saying? I ain't never going to be.
Right.
So there's a lot of things I deal with, you know, from childhood, you know what I mean? In terms of broken marriages, I've seen 3 divorces, you know what I'm saying? So like I've always had this thing where I had this fixation on having like this perfect household. You know what I'm saying? Where people work it through, do the right things. I call it almost like the Will Smith thing.
Yeah, I feel that.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. Everybody thought they was the perfect relationship.
I've had that in college. I had a situation. People
with that real love, that Jada in that
real love. Hey, man. You know what I'm saying? I had that. People thought our situation was perfect, but it was the most toxic relationship you could ever see yourself in. You know, and a lot of times I think that it's important to just like really take heed to those things because you want to get to a point of being successful in life and then all of a sudden this is like something happens or you have like this. What was that movie? I can't remember the movie right now. I think it was called Temptation. Was it Temptations? Tyler Perry movie. Anyway, it was a movie where this young lady was like basically dating dark skin child. I can't remember her name, but she basically had this childhood trauma she never dealt with.
Gotcha.
And she had gotten, unfortunately, a gang of dudes. And then all of a sudden something sparked and she ended up like started cheating on her husband.
Oh, wow.
Out of nowhere. But it was just like super lustful. Her husband did nothing wrong.
Dang.
None of this stuff. It just got sparked and she had never dealt with a childhood trauma.
Okay.
But yet she was dealing with it in the sense of just acting out and becoming promiscuous and like actually cheating and committing adultery or infidelity. So
gotcha.
A lot of times if you don't deal with that inner child, it comes out in different forms, different ways. And on the personal level, I mean, for me, I seen that. I've seen that in other people. I've had to talk to my mother about some things with her as well, too. And I really had that conversation with her about situation with, her situations. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to get too much into depth, but it's an inner child trying to get validation sometimes in different ways, trying to mend other people when you're not really able to help yourself because you don't want to deal with yourself.
Yeah.
Dealing with yourself is an obstacle.
For real.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, and I think another side of it is it's a thought that I have when you see like bodybuilders, right?
Okay.
A lot of times they overcompensate to get really big, but they're dealing with something else that nobody else knows about.
Right, yeah.
Even with Mike Tyson, he didn't do his shadow work, but he got all this fame and power and didn't know how to deal with it. And come to find out he had been beaten, molested, all types of stuff growing up and never really dealt with it. So imagine being in a position where you never dealt with that shadow work, never dealt with the issues that you had before, and then you get all this fame and power, and then you destroy it all.
Sheesh. Yeah, that's dangerous. And it's an easy position to be in. Like I find myself doing that a lot. Sometimes, you have these obstacles in front of you and stuff like that, but the easier thing to do is to just be like, man, I don't want to think about it. I'm gonna just go do this or do that. You know what I'm saying? Even if it's something like you said with bodybuilders where you feel like you're replacing it with something healthy, or you're throwing yourself into something healthy. So it's kind of like this moral credentialing type of thing that occurs. You feel like virtuous and stuff like that. You still ignoring a lot of work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
You working on yourself in one way. It's easy to go into the gym and lift and forget everything, forget all your problems and stuff like that. And
it feels great.
Feel like you're making some progress, but it's like, it's some work behind the scenes that needs to, behind the schemes, as I say, need to be done.
Yeah. And I think the reason why I'm bringing it up is just because of the fact that a lot of times people don't want to acknowledge it, but it's there. Like for me, it was hard enough just to communicate because growing up, one of my things I can kind of get into depth with was being able to communicate. I had an issue with my throat chakra. I would get scared. I'll be hesitant, passive, whatever you want to call it. You know what I'm saying? And would not be able to communicate. I just used to be very extremely quiet. You know what I'm saying? And this is because of the fact that in my household, emotions and all that stuff was not something that you really wanted to talk about. I mentioned this before in other episodes. It's like you had to keep going. Like if you showed any weakness, it was going to be made fun of. You know what I'm saying? In a certain way. So it's just like, for me, I had to get to a certain age where I understood how to communicate. Even with poetry, I also look like some of my old poems, man. I used to have like certain stanzas that be so elementary, like, but as I became more understanding that voice or whatever I had inside of me that I wanted to kind of like put out there, it became more comfortable for me. Okay. But I had to get out of that environment, as well. So sometimes the reason why people are not able to deal with it because of the routine, I'm not going to knock it, because a lot of times you are stuck in an impoverished mindset and you don't have time to really deal with the mending and the healing as well, too.
Right. And we've talked, too, about the importance of getting out and traveling and seeing other things to open and expand your mind. A lot of times it's just your environment and you ain't because you haven't seen outside of that environment, you really don't know that you're not trapped there. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't know that there's other opportunities and other possibilities. And I see that, even here, even in places here where it seems like there's a lot of opportunity. Yeah. Like, how could you not feel like you have a route to success, but people still get trapped in that. And I think the concept of, or the name shadow work, I don't know where that comes from. Yeah. But I think that's really interesting because it's like this thing. It to me, what I think of is like it's this thing that's always that you're dragging around with you everywhere.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? It's always being held over you, or could be pulling you back or whatever.
Yeah. And
it's real interesting.
I mean, the concept was brought to me from somebody I didn't really look into in terms of research because it's not something that's very commonly spoke about. So it was like one more like some spiritual type stuff. And I was just kind of going through some little changes, trying to understand more about myself because a lot of times if you're not really like bumped or pushed out of a situation, it's this book called I'll Win the Devil by Napoleon Hill. You get stuck in like this thing called hypnotic rhythm where you just consecutively keep doing the same thing over and over again, but you don't really like challenge yourself or fail. because you're afraid of it. A lot of times the reason why people are not willing to acknowledge shadow work is because of the fear of failure or not being able to be successful in certain things or not acknowledging your failures, quote unquote. I mean, for me, I know it's gonna sound kind of contradictory. I don't really believe in failure per se, but it's like I would more so say shortcomings.
Yeah.
Because failures a lot of times teach you things too, so you can't be afraid of that.
Indeed.
But again, with that shadow work, is a reason for that. Like people are in avoidance, like we mentioned before, from being able to actually deal with that. So it's like being able to go through it now. You know what I'm saying? And when that person brought it to my attention, I realized what really brought it to my attention really was I would try to overcompensate in relationships, you know, with women. You know what I'm saying? I was looking for that emotional support I didn't get growing up and be looking for like that, what they call it, mama girlfriend type feel. So when that was brought to my attention, it allowed me to kind of elevate and look at myself differently, you know what I mean? And take heed to what my purpose is and acknowledging that and actually having self-love.
Right.
Because I didn't know what that was. So I would allow myself to be in positions almost like Will Smith, you know what I'm saying? Be that most powerful, like be a team, I was a student leader, I was an RA and all that stuff, but behind the scenes, it was some brokenness, you know what I'm saying? I was dealing with a very toxic person that told me it was toxic, but I still dealt with it because I thought I could fix them.
Exactly, bro.
But I needed to fix myself.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm really trying to get at with the shadow work. It's like a lot of times we'll try to step out of other places, try to help other people, but it's not your responsibility to do that. I mean, you can help be supportive, but you can't be, you know, balls deep.
Yeah.
Literally. Yeah. I mean, I was figuratively in. You know what I'm saying? You know, I was putting that work in, son. I was putting that work in.
Been there many times.
You know what I mean? And a lot of times I think the soul ties play a part, but I think it was like a blessing in disguise when I came across that situation with that young lady, because I ain't gonna lie to the young lady, I was definitely trying to holler. I'm not gonna put it out there because no offense, I'm not finna give you that pub, but I appreciate you. You know who you are if you ever see this podcast. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of brought me out of the place that I was stuck in. You know, I was afraid of my own opportunity of success. Like, you know, putting music out there, being more artistic. Like I didn't start doing it until after that situation occurred. Okay. Like I have only been doing paintings and stuff like really consecutively for like the last year and a half or 2 years. Right. Before that, I just never believed in what I was doing. But then when I saw that person doing what they was doing, with their situation, with their businesses and how they was building up, I'm like, I could do the same thing. Yeah. You know, I don't know why I never acknowledged it before, but it was that push I needed. It was almost like I call it the Erykah Badu syndrome. Yeah. You know, you ever notice that people that come in her camp, they end up changing? You be like, yo, Andre was not like that before you met Erykah. Right. You know what I'm saying? Or
that's interesting. Jay
Electronica. He was a little different afterwards. Common changed too. I mean, a lot of these cats had an influence. You know, sometimes it does take you a little bit of that new to get you to change up a little bit. I ain't gonna, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes that does play a part. So, I mean, ladies, shout out to y'all. If y'all influencing dudes and actually help to cultivate some dudes in their minds and helping them build with shadow work, shout out to y'all. You know what I'm saying? Kudos to y'all for doing that.
Yeah, even taking it apart from that, I think it's real interesting that sometimes it just takes, sometimes it's a person, like you're saying, sometimes it's just an experience or a situation that unlocks something. It could be something that you already know, but it unlocks a different level of understanding, because there's just levels of understanding of things that it's like, I know that to have a successful business, I got to do sales. But for me, until I took a sales position at another 9-to-5 place. And it wasn't until then that I really realized the importance of doing sales in your business. Like, even though that's entrepreneurship 101, I didn't realize the importance of it until I had that experience. So it's like unlocked that other level of understanding in me. Yeah. Sometimes. Yeah, no. We just gotta, sometimes we gotta, we just gotta go through it to get to it,
Yeah, true. And I'm like, to piggyback off what you're saying with sales, like, I used to be terrified of that, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't until you actually go out there, get your feet wet. Sometimes you gotta jump into the deep end. Sometimes you don't. But just me, I'm like, I'm type of nigga, I will bungee jump. But anyway, honestly, with the shadow work, I think, light workers are there too, but the shadow work is just something that I just always found very interesting.
Yeah.
You know, I always not saying like innately I got anything wrong with me, but like the darkness, people always avoid it. Like even when you look at like certain concepts of like Star Wars, like everything is needed. I always talk about duality, but it's just like you have to have the light with the darkness or at full completion. So you always take that time to step back, you know, retrograde a little bit and figure out exactly what it is that maybe might be hindering you. Because sometimes I feel like the universe won't allow you to be blessed until you acknowledge, you know, certain things that you are dealing with, certain traumas, you know, things that need to be healed or are broken inside of you. And it won't be opened up until you've actually gone in and like really dig deep. Maybe you have to even have to talk to people. Not saying that sometimes there's always something you can do on your own. You might have to talk to people to kind of unleash it as well too. Yeah. Therapy is always something I don't not therapy. It's like a barber though, because you gotta have the right therapist.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, if I have my experiences with different therapy, you know what I'm saying? But you gotta find somebody that you feel comfortable enough to be able to express the thing, because it's not always the best thing. But once you find that confidence and have that confidence, you'll see that it open up doors for other confidence, you know, confidence for yourself.
My bad.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, and know too that it's like you don't have to be like going through it like crazy to go talk to a therapist. Like it's worth it to do the work before you need the work. Like it's worth it to put in the work now before you get in a situation. Because I found myself in situations where, like you said, you trying to like save somebody and it ends up taking such a toll on you that it brings out an inner darkness that you really might not have known that you had in you. Or thought you had gotten rid of. It was like, that's, and that thing takes over. And you know, for me, I found myself becoming somebody that I didn't want to be because I was trying to, you know, I was being put through the ringer trying to help this person who just wasn't in a place that they were ready to receive that help. So, you know, if I had taken the time to really delve into some other things, and then sometimes it just is what it is. And like I said, you got to go through it to get to that point of realization. But yeah. But you know, it's definitely worth it to read and to study and to, you know, do that work before you need it. Yeah,
you know, because you don't want to wait to the last minute too.
Yeah,
because that breaking point. I mean, like I mentioned before, Mike Tyson. You know what I'm saying? Dude was amazingly, you know, amazing talented. Like his work ethic is crazy. But on the flip side, all the trauma and all the stuff that he dealt with, the baggage that never got dealt with, it just created, it was his own demise. It led to his own demise. You can learn from these people too. You know, I think Mike Tyson's still successful. Yeah. Still gonna be a legend.
That's one of the people I really want to meet. Like, I love hearing him talk. It's kind of sad to hear him talk the way that he does, but in a way it's also inspiring because it's like he really has kind of like separated himself. He's like, he really has like two different selves. Like when you hear him talk about the old him, it's just like in this such, you know, disdainful, distasteful way. You know, he's like, I hated myself, you know, and I didn't know I hated myself, and that was making me.
Sometimes you don't.
It turned me to a monster.
You know, and it turned me to a monster, and it really could be that. You know, I didn't want to be that monster. You know, but at the end of the day, he still needed to confront it at some point. And sometimes because you have such a great power, it takes for a great downfall for you to really wake up. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, I honestly feel like with Mike Tyson, shout out to him as well, I think his story was necessary for people to see. Sometimes it's that necessary because you are able to take on that. You know what they say, with much is given, much is required. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like with this situation specifically, I know that's the case because, I mean, shout out to MC Hammer. I mean, of course, he tried to put people on, but they kind of really screwed him over. I don't think it was the same situation, but you see these people that became pioneers, what they do, and him especially, like you learn so much from their story. You know, you learn where and where not to go. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And at least other folks that we could talk about as well. I know we mentioned, you know, Will Smith and Tupac, but that was one part of them both that we both could have, you know, talked about in the previous episode with the shadow work. Yeah. Pac could have dealt with his own, because of course he dealt with his back and forth. And then Will Smith obviously puts on a huge facade. And he deals with a lot of darknesses from his past as well that probably could have definitely be dealt with a lot more, I think, seriously, before it got, because it's gonna be people that's gonna step in and manipulate that.
Mm-hmm.
Jada Pinkett, I think she manipulates that entirely. It's like, it's almost like that King Kong thing. Like she's like the little damsel that just has this big, robust person that's so powerful that she could just really manipulate him in different ways. And she knows that inner child. And he hasn't, I feel like, really dealt with it. I think he deals with it in a way he thinks he's dealing with it, but I don't. Stabbing somebody on the Oscar, especially Chris, like we mentioned before, come on, man. This is Chris Rock. So I'm looking at these individuals, I'm looking at these situations, and then not trying to compare myself or yourself as well. It's just, I think as human beings, it's just always important to really take that step, really take that time and that put that work in and really understand, even if you got to step away from situations. Because even times we realized like the pandemic was important for me too.
Mm-hmm.
I realized some other stuff that I was dealing with that wasn't really dealt with because I was so comfortable in an automated space that it took for a huge pandemic for me to realize I was in such a toxic space at the same time. I created my own hell.
Yeah.
And it was holding me back in a lot of different ways. So yeah, it's very important to deal with that shadow work. I didn't know the name. I didn't know the terminology until I came across this individual, but it was necessary.
Already.
You know what I'm saying? So I think we all get attracted to certain people. Sometimes it is just physical. Other times it could be more than that. You know, I needed that experience.
Right.
Move forward. So
man, yeah, people come into your life for a reason. Yeah. You know, my pastor you say is your next level is always in another person. And that's something that really opened my mindset up, was like, because I used to be to the point where I walk around like, I hate people, man. Like, man, I hate people. You know what I'm saying? And that, hearing that challenged me to stop saying that and to start telling myself I love people. I love, you know, even when I, you know, don't want to be around people, just realizing that you never know, you know, what stranger might be sitting next to you, or something like that could be the person to change your life forever. And it could be just with something that they say in passing, or something, you know, something that you say that they hear, and then they like, hey, by the way, you know what I'm saying? And then some business venture start, you know, like anything could happen. And putting yourself in that closed off mindset where you don't realize that can be detrimental to you. So you always remember that your next level is always in another person, and we're put on this earth to connect with each other and to grow in that way as well. So that was really eye opening.
Yeah, no, that's actually something that's very, I think, because we have these pivots and like, I never thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I as we speak now, I'm like, like in a moment, like, I kind of noticed that every person I've been around or even dealt with in a relationship, they've challenged me in different ways.
Right. Yep.
You know, I've had to overcome certain things. I've had to battle through certain situations as well that I just felt like was unnecessary. But sometimes you might have to deal with it for whatever reasons. You're supposed to educate somebody else, and we're all interacting in this space. Right. You know, for reasons. So yeah, no, that's very important. So
yeah, shout out Pastor Morgan. Check out Ernest B's Barbecue.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Shout him out, man.
Yeah.
That's what's up, man. That's
absolutely. Hey, man, we're going to take a quick break, though. And when we come back, we're going to talk some more about this shadow work, man.
Absolutely. I guess the next thing I kind of want to go into is like, just like the perception of like spirituality. Because like, I think that people have their own like prepackaged notion about how spiritual things are set up. But like, I don't know, man. As things have opened up to me in terms of spirituality and dealing with things on that level, because of course we have the physical, then we have the mental, but the spiritual is very important.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm not trying to infringe on anybody else's beliefs. I mean, of course, it's just my own personal perception, but I think a lot of times people kind of avoid the shadow work as well because they're like the spiritual side of things.
Yeah,
it's taboo for people, you know, because a lot of times we're so comfortable in what's been put in front of us that to question anything else outside of that can make a person very unhinged.
For sure.
What I'm saying? So, I mean, for me personally, I always thought like spirituality was just basically like going to church and just praying and feeling connected to the source. But then I realized there's a whole other part to it, you know, because you can have lesser energy, you can have higher energy, it's just different places that you can really be at And it's so much easier to ignore,
Yeah.
you know. But I just want to ask, like, why do you think people ignore? Just out of curiosity.
Ignore spirituality.
Yeah, dealing with spirituality.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that makes some people uncomfortable for several reasons. Like, I know a lot of people, and I've even been there myself before, like a lot of people confuse spirituality with religion to the point that it's like you hear people say stuff like religion is, it started so many wars and stuff like that, which is true, but it's like they conflate the two things to the point that it turns them off to spirituality. Or, there's the attributing too much of it to to God.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like saying, well, if God is so good, then why did this happen? Why did that happen? Stuff like that. And then people get turned off to spirituality because of that. When, really, it's when you talk about spirituality, even if you're an atheist, you can be spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
You can have certain practices, you can have certain routines and things like that. Again, not things that are religious, but things that make you feel more connected to, whatever you want to call it.
Your source,
like you said, that energy. We all have different names for it and stuff like that. Things that make you feel more fulfilled, things that give you a sense of purpose, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Even that is spirituality to an extent.
I think for me, it gets interesting because you see people that can hide behind things, knowing that deep down inside they might not even truly like follow what it is, because they've just been traditionally passed down.
Right.
And for me to mention these things, it is a taboo for certain people in my family. It's just interesting mentioning like, Shadow, like, what are you talking about? It's witchcraft or something? Like, nah, bro, but Wicca, I'm like, nah, bro, it's just dealing with yourself, man. Like in the shadows and the depths, when you go somewhere in the deep, like even like with me, it's gonna sound random, but I'm scared of like the depths of the ocean, like that.
Yeah,
crazy. You don't know what's in there,
right?
But we live in a universe where it's like the ocean is there, but then like outer space is there too. So it's just like asshole beyond, Anyway, so it's just very interesting that there's certain things that we just fear because we can't see it, or understand it, and that fear, I feel like, plays a huge part in a lot of different things, and it's something that I think fear is an adaptation in a sense, but also could be a detriment, because of course, if you're, well, I wouldn't say fear, but more so pain, but that's sensory. Anyway, that's something totally separate. But I feel like the fear is there because it's so much easier to just be fearful than just be tenacious and like go after certain things, try to understand other layers of what's around us. And that comfortability is why I feel like people kind of ignore what's there in front of them sometimes too. Because you can kind of create your own space. Like I kind of grew up in a house where it was kind of like, it just felt, everything was like HGTV. You feel me? Like everything was like perfectly fit to the point where you feel like, man, can I around this house? It's kind of too nice. But it was not any like love there.
Got you.
Which is very interesting. So when I look at that inner child that kind of grew up, just like I was always looking for like that love facet, and dealing with my shadow work, I had to realize that love starts within first, then it kind of like explores outwards. But I always thought it was outward love that needed to be taken in for me to really be able to understand how to love myself. And that's trippy, you know what I mean? But those type of situations don't really come to you until you actually deal with that work. So it's like, it's so much easier to ignore it. Cause I'm like, I could just get this gratification or validation from other people and it makes me feel fulfilled, but it's falsified. So I think what comes to mind when I think about those things, why people are like afraid of spirituality, because it goes to other depths and it's not easy to want to be willing to deal with those things. So, which I just find very interesting because like this human experience, I mean, obviously you're a spirit having a human experience.
Yeah.
It's just like, to see it, to hear about it, but to see it is very interesting, especially on your own accord, like on your own personal. Because I acknowledge I was ignoring it. I'm like, nah, I'm about to get this love for this girl. That's gonna make me feel fulfilled. We're gonna have sex. We're gonna feel good. We're gonna connect. Boom.
Yeah.
But it's a lot more to it because you got to be one within self before you can actually kind of take on anybody else or deal with somebody else as well too. So very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I guess another reason too, because it's work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We already got enough stuff to deal with. We got to make money, right?
Right.
We live in capitalism, right? So it's like everybody got to pay their bills. I ain't got time to be doing no damn shadow work. Nigga, I'm be in the shadows if I don't pay my light bill.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's like, damn.
Be in the shadows if I don't work.
Yeah, I got outside in the dumpster with that nigga out there talking that shadow work. I ain't got time for that. Nigga. What you talking about? You talking that boo boo.
Right.
So it's just like,
time for all of that.
I guess it kind of leads to the next thing I was going to talk about. I'm glad you said that. Because I was going to say, well, do you feel like society has made it so because of the fact that feudal slavism system is put into place so well put that like they have to keep certain things like propaganda and certain things put out there to keep you deterred from actually going in a direction because of course you have to abide by certain responsibilities that were bestowed upon you based on what's been told to you that you're supposed to do.
Right.
Not that you acknowledge it and want to do it yourself, but because it's what's been told to you that you have to do, you have to abide by these, these guidelines. Because obviously when you get the mindset in control, you control the body.
Yeah.
The mind is the most powerful thing ever.
Right.
It's outside of, being involved with spiritual. I know that sounds kind of wish-washy, but it's just very interesting because I feel like once the mind is controlled, the body will just follow.
Yeah.
And with that being said, I feel like that plays a other part in as well. Not to blame anybody per se, but I think it's an intentionality there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like from there being churches and religion. I'm not trying to offend nobody. I'm just saying what I think and what I feel. But I think it's definitely been put into place systemically to keep things in a certain order. And for you not to question certain things, because why would you? You read the book Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill, you're like, whoa, that devil concept to me personally, and maybe people like it cringe at, the concept of shadow work because it sounds dark and demonic. But I feel like the devil is just really your mindset. I think it's the mindset itself that thinks lesser of or does things and plays a part in keeping you away from what you're supposed to fulfill. But again, it talks about that in the Bible, in the book, that there'll be a lot of people that don't want to acknowledge these different things, because of the fact that they don't want to fail. They don't want to go off course. They don't want to be a servant. They want to just live by what they do. They want to live by gluttony. They want to live by mass fornication, all types of different things, you know what I'm saying, versus just really dealing with themselves and dealing with that inner demon or devil that can actually keep them from getting to the next level plane on that spiritual journey. So that's the reason why I brought up shadow work.
Yeah.
That was very important to kind of bring to the light within these type of episodes that we have, or at least this episode specifically. So, yeah.
For sure. For sure. Not just... There, you get to a point where you wonder where the line even is once you really have seen some of the more behind the scenes of like just church and where church and government meet.
Yeah.
I went to a very big church, and the head pastor actually ended up leaving the church, passing it down to his son to go work in the White House. And do his ministry work there and stuff like that.
Separation of church and state, quote unquote.
Where?
Right. You know what I'm saying? They get stipends, they get paid a certain amount of money to be able to keep these churches pastors. So
everybody in the church was, when I was going, it was like, yeah, go do the Lord's work and stuff. But me, I had it just made me think, like, it kind of like opened my mind. It was like, dang, bro, this is what happens. This is what's going on. And it just kind of made a whole bunch of other things make sense. Yeah. Like you start connecting dots. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's like, oh, okay. And this is how certain bills start to get passed, where it's like, oh, we doing this to women. We doing this to the, yeah.
Powerful. It's power in scribe, man, in writing, as you can see.
Right. So even church, AKA, or / government, can be a huge tool that actually can keep you away from spirituality.
Because you look at different things And shout out to those that were involved in the Black Panther movement. They used churches as facilities in order to come together because they understood that when we were enslaved, we had nothing else but the Bible or what that was taught to us. Because, of course, you just had a body. You know what I'm saying? Like, again, if you separate the mind from the body, control the mind, the body will follow. You see what I'm saying? That's essential. So it's like when you control that and that narrative and that understanding of things, then, of course, you have a whole lot of things that fall in the line of that, and why people are not willing to challenge certain things because their mindset is already controlled. I mean, you got social media, your Instagram, all this stuff is trying to plague your mind.
Right.
I see it as entertainment, but I don't let it plague me. I don't believe in it. I think it's entertaining. I might make jokes on the surface, but I know deep down inside of stuff it ain't real, man. And we all know this, money ain't real. All this stuff is all an illusion. So like, what's really real is yourself, and you dealing with what it is that you have to overcome as obstacles on a daily basis.
Right.
And what you were saying in terms of church and state, it's just very interesting seeing those things as well too. Because at some point there was a situation, if you look into history, even when it came to like theater, they had to teach you morale. If you didn't show up, it would behead you or they ostracize you from that society. So it's certain things that are still put into play now from thousands of years ago.
Right.
Humans down there are somewhat still the same.
Yeah.
Not different. We've evolved maybe with technological advances, but humans are still human.
Indeed.
You know what I'm saying? So again, with that, that's just very interesting in and of itself. But dealing with spirituality and that shadow work, there's a reason why people are not having this brought to their attention.
Yeah.
And
I would say, that's another thing going back to what both of us were saying earlier, concerning it's like a lot of people getting turned off to spirituality. Like we've had thousands and thousands and thousands of years of seeing how humanity can be, and I think that can be a deterrent, I guess. But you can't let the cynicism set in so much so that you aren't willing to do that, the spiritual work.
Yeah, man. That's real, man.
Yeah.
Even in the book, if you guys read this book, man. One of my homies put me on. He's a Mason. I mean, I'm not into that, but he was like, man, you can check this out still, regardless. He talks about it, like when they had that conversation with the devil, that this book will be published, but it will never be seen by people.
You said Outwitting
the Devil by Napoleon Hill. He wrote the book Think and Grow Rich. Everybody knows that movie.
Yeah.
But he wrote that same book before he wrote Think and Grow Rich. It was never publicized until like 2006 or something like that. Something crazy. Like a really late date. But this is written back in 1920s. So some of the same concepts he talked about back then in that book are now taking and unveiling themselves. It just goes to show you that human beings have the same habitual ways of dealing with things in society and how they kind of formulate and move forward. So, I mean, this is always a good way to kind of challenge things. But again, of course, go into that shadow work as well. But check out that book.
Well,
I think we definitely touched on some things. Hopefully, this gravitated when the lights just went out. I think we touched on something in the shadows.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? But, what it comes down to is just really think about how to better yourself in different ways. Challenge some things that you've already actually felt like you needed to challenge, because a lot of times we don't have the courage to do so because we're so comfortable and so well knit within our certain, confines. So it's always good to do so, challenging certain things, going against the grain. It doesn't hurt. That if it does hurt, it might be a growing pain. You know what I'm saying? Right. That's how I would see it. But again, we appreciate y'all, tuning in with us. Hopefully this is not too far-fetched in terms of the shadow work. But again, we want y'all to connect, you know what I'm saying? And take on that stigma of being nice guys, but really understand that we do deal with things just like everybody else.
Absolutely. And man, feel free to send us emails, DMs.
All that.
Send us voice notes.
All that.
Let us know what y'all are thinking of these topics, what y'all thinking of future topics that you want to suggest. Everything, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
If you want to be on the podcast,
let
us know. You know what I'm saying?
We definitely gonna have a space. We getting things situated as well too for y'all to come through. It's a safe space, man. So feel comfortable to reach out, chime in, connect with us. But again, thank you so much for tuning in with us, of course. It's been a blessing, been a blast. Again, my name is Jacques Wright.
Adrian Peace.
And this is the
Nice Guys Podcast.
Y'all stay blessed. One love.
Peace.